welcome back to my channel, The Veldman Way. If you are a returning viewer, I wanted to just take a quick second to thank you so much for your continued support in my brand new channel. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Ashley and I am a full-time working mom. I work from home 100% of the time, and I wanted to create a channel for working moms who maybe are not necessarily the best cook or the best organizer or the best cleaner, and really want to watch someone who's just like them do their best. And that's why I call it the Veldman Way, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily always go the way it's planned, and I like to say I did it the Veldman way. So welcome. Today I am doing my first cooking video, so we will see how this turns out. Like I said, I am not necessarily the best cooker. I'm not a bad cooker though, but one thing that I love to make are soups. I love soup, and since it's now starting to get cold here in the Midwest, now is the perfect time to introduce you to two soups. The first soup that I'm going to make for you guys is a soup that I make on a regular basis. It is my Panera Copycat Tomato Basil Soup. And it is so good. It is so easy to make. I make it a lot during the week, and what's great is that it makes a ton for leftovers, so you can get 2 meals out of it if you have a smaller family. If you have a large family, no problem, you get one really good meal out of it. And I'm gonna make that with some of my I say famous grilled cheese, but really only 2 other people have tried it, my son and my husband, and they both like it. So to me, it's famous. My grilled cheese with a little bit of a twist. And then the next soup I'm going to make is one that I have never made before. I love corn chowder, so I thought I would try out a recipe, a crock pot recipe. So that one we'll try together. That will be a newbie for me. So let's get started with the tomato basil soup, and then we will finish the video with the crock pot corn chowder. For the tomato basil soup, you only need a couple of ingredients. You're going to start off with a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, a 28-ounce can of petite diced tomatoes, 1/3 cup of butter, which comes out to be about 5.5 to 6 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of sugar, but I do like to add just a little bit extra to my soup, and 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And then the recipe calls for 15 to 20 leaves of basil. However, I love basil, so I usually put 20 and then maybe add a couple more into my soup. You can never have too much basil in tomato basil soup. I realized when I lined up all of the ingredients for this recipe, I forgot 2 pretty important ingredients, so I'll include those here. You're also going to need a 15-ounce can of chicken broth and 1 tablespoon of garlic. Now the recipe says crushed garlic. I used minced because I use minced garlic and everything, and it worked out just fine. So the first thing you're going to do is get all of your cans opened and ready to go. When I cook this soup, I like to use the large Dutch oven. It's plenty big for this soup. You could probably use something a little bit smaller, but make sure you're using a big enough pot for all the ingredients because it's a lot. So the first step is to combine the tomatoes, the broth, and garlic, and you're going to bring that to a boil and let that boil for about 10 minutes. Now while that soup is starting to cook, I will start chopping up my basil. Now you want to make sure that you're chopping it up pretty small. You don't want too big of chunks in there. Now I am the worst at chopping. I hate chopping onion, peppers, tomatoes, herbs. Doesn't matter what it is, I'm bad at it. So if you have any pointers on an easier way of chopping, please leave them in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to hear your suggestions, because the fact that I haven't chopped off all my fingers yet is pretty much a miracle. Looks like our soup is at a boil. Look how good that looks. It smells amazing. So I'm going to let this boil for 10 minutes. Okay, so for the grilled cheese sandwiches, I always make a Parmesan crusted grilled cheese. And unfortunately, I don't have any grated Parmesan cheese. It's one of those things where I feel like I always have like ton of them in the pantry, and my husband's always giving me a hard time that I keep buying it, and I have so many sitting in there. I don't ever pay attention. Well, one time I assumed I had one in there, I didn't. So I'm going to try using it with shredded Parmesan cheese. Never done this before. I've always used grated. I don't think it's going to turn out as good, but we're going to try it. Why not? We're going to do it the Veldman way, right? And see how it works. So wish me luck. So for the grilled cheese, I always try to find a nice thick bread. This time the only thick bread I could really find was Texas toast, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I think I'm going to use Texas toast from now on. It was very, very good, nice and thick, perfect for a grilled cheese sandwich. So you're going to assemble your grilled cheese just like you do any other grilled cheese. You know how it's done. You put the butter on the top. Get that nice and smooth. Now make sure, don't be like me and always forget to leave your butter out. This is probably the first time I've ever made grilled cheese, and I actually remembered to leave my butter out to get it to room temperature. So it was nice and easy to spread. Once you have all that butter on that slice of bread, you're going to take your Parmesan cheese. Now remember, normally I use grated Parmesan cheese, but since I didn't have any, I used the shredded. But you want to make sure that you get it nice, nice and thick, nice thick layer of it on top of the bread. I like to push it into the butter a little bit to try to make it stick. It was a little bit harder with the shredded Parmesan cheese than the grated, but it still worked out. And then you're going to sprinkle just a little bit of garlic powder on the top to give it just a nice little garlicky taste with the Parmesan. And then you make sure you repeat that for the other piece of bread as well. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part, the cheese. I use just American slices of cheese. I usually like to get fancy cheese for my grilled cheese sandwiches, but my husband and my son are more of the plain American cheese type of people. So since I'm making this for them, I will be nice and use the cheese that they prefer. I won't go fancy this time. Now it is kind of hard to get the cheese under here without completely flipping all of the Parmesan cheese around, especially with the shredded cheese, but I made it work. So our soup has been boiling for 10 minutes and it is ready for the next step. Now I don't like my soup to be too chunky, so I use my little hand blender. I'm not really sure what the actual name of this thing is. We'll call it a hand blender, just to blend it out a little bit so it's not too chunky, but there is still a little bit of chunk in there, but just, perfect amount. Then you're going to put in your butter and let that melt, and then you're also going to add in your sugar. Now I sometimes like to add just a little bit of extra sugar to it because I like to have a sweeter soup. It helps kind of get rid of some of the acidity in the tomatoes. So to each of their own. Once the butter has melted and the sugar has dissolved, it's time to put in your heavy whipping cream. Now in the recipe it states to slowly add it in while stirring. I'm not really sure the reason for that. If anyone knows why you're supposed to slowly add like dairy products to soup slowly instead of pouring it in all at once, if you could let me know, that'd be great. Leave it in the comments below. Once you have the heavy whipping cream all stirred in there, you add your basil and give that a good stir. Now at this point, normally I'll do a little bit of a taste test to see if I have enough basil. Sometimes I will add a couple of dashes, like I'm doing here, of dried basil, just because, like I said before, I love basil and you can never have too much in the soup. Once I have the basil and whipping cream in the soup, I will make the grilled cheese sandwiches because I like to let the soup simmer a little bit so all the ingredients can cook together one last time. So I am putting on my grilled cheese sandwiches on my little frying pan, and I was actually really surprised by how well the shredded Parmesan cheese sticked to the sandwiches. It actually worked out better than the grated Parmesan cheese. So I think I will use shredded Parmesan cheese again in the future. And there we have it, the perfect tomato basil soup. This tastes just like the Panera soup. It is so, so good. And the grilled cheese sandwiches turned out fantastic. How's the grilled cheese though?
Delicious.
Very good.
All right. I would say how is the grilled cheese? I had to use shredded Parmesan to take a bite of the grilled cheese because it's different than last time I made it. I thought you'd notice.
Fantastic.
All right.
I can feel the Parmesan on the crusties.
Yeah?
And it tastes awesome. It makes it better.
Good. Okay, today is Sunday and we are doing our final soup of my soup recipe video. This is one that I've never made before, and this one is also made in the slow cooker. On Sundays, I love to make recipes in my crock pot because it's just easier and it makes the house smell amazing on a relaxing Sunday. So that is what we are going to do today, and this is a slow cooker corn chowder. I love corn chowder. It's got a lot of ingredients in it, so it's going to be a little bit of a complicated one, so bear with me as we kind of figure out how to make it. So the ingredients that are needed for this recipe are 1 32-ounce package of frozen corn kernels, or 5 cups fresh corn, 1 small onion diced, 4 potatoes peeled and cubed, 2 medium carrots that you're going to dice, 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 cloves of garlic minced, or you can use 2 teaspoons of garlic powder if you prefer, 1 bay leaf, which I didn't end up using, half a teaspoon of dried thyme leaves, 1.5 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 3/4 teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 15-ounce can of creamed corn, and 4 cups of chicken stock, the low sodium. And then to finish the recipe, at the end, you're going to use 5 tablespoons of flour, 1 cup of half and half, 1 pound of bacon, cooked and chopped, half a red bell pepper, and 2 tablespoons of parsley. So here I have my 4 potatoes all peeled, and I'm going to start chopping them. Again, I hate chopping. You can see I'm not that good at it. I made them a little bit bigger chunks. I really wasn't sure on what size to make them. I haven't really made soup with potatoes before, so I don't know, maybe next time I might make them a little bit smaller than I did because they were a little chunky. And then you're going to chop your carrots. Again, I didn't make them too small of pieces, but I think next time I will make them a little bit smaller, but they turned out good. And then chop that onion as well. When I'm making a recipe with a bunch of different spices, I like to measure them out first and put them in a small bowl just to make sure I'm not missing any of them, and then dump it into whatever it is that I'm making. Once you have all of your ingredients prepped, it's time to get them all into the slow cooker. So you're going to add the corn, onion, potatoes, carrots, butter, garlic, your bay leaf if you use it, your thyme, salt, pepper, smoked paprika, creamed corn, and chicken stock into a 6-quart slow cooker. And make sure you stir that up well. And you're going to cook on high for 3 to 4 hours until vegetables are tender. Now, I noticed that this was a very, very chunky soup. So I will probably, next time I make this, add an extra cup of the chicken stock. I guess it depends on your preference. I don't mind chunky soup, but this was more like a stew than a soup. Okay, so part of this recipe calls for a pound of bacon, which I'll get to in a second, like putting it all in the soup and everything, but I wanted to share with you how I like to make bacon, especially since I just cleaned the top of my stove. I like to bake it. I don't always do this, but if like my husband prefers it done in the pan the old-fashioned way, so usually when we make BLTs and things like that, I'll do it the normal way, but since this is going in a soup, I'm going to bake the bacon in the oven. So this is how I do that. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. Then you will take a large baking sheet and line it with some parchment paper. Now, of course, my parchment paper never fits my sheet, so I had to tear it up a little bit and kind of make it fit. And then you're going to take your bacon and layer it evenly onto that parchment paper. You can have it overlap just a little bit. That's fine. Sometimes you have to have it overlap a little bit in order to fit it all on there. Now you're going to add the bacon into the oven once it's preheated, and the recipe that I found for this says to cook it for 18 to 20 minutes, but normally I end up cooking it longer, but I'm going to set the timer for 18 minutes and then check it. While that bacon is cooking, I'm going to chop up my red pepper. Now, adding the bacon and the red pepper and the half and half and the remaining ingredients, they say to do that 30 minutes before the soup is done. So just make sure you're timing it out correctly when you're making the bacon, if you're making it in the oven or if you're making it on the pan, that you are doing it 30 minutes before the soup is done cooking. The next step is to whisk together the flour and half until the flour is dissolved, and then we will add this to the soup. Look how amazing this soup looks. It smells delicious. Then you're going to add in your half and half mixture and your chopped red pepper. Now, while it was cooking, it did thin out a lot, so it wasn't as thick as it initially was, but it was still pretty thick, so I'd still maybe add a little bit extra chicken stock if you prefer more of a soupy soup, but it was still very good. And now our bacon is finished. I ended up cooking it a little bit longer, I think closer to 22 minutes, because I checked it at 18 and it still wasn't crispy enough for my liking. And it looked pretty good, but once I started kind of taking it apart a little bit to put in the soup, I realized I probably could have kept it in for a few more minutes. I usually like my bacon a little bit crispier. So next time I make this, I'll remember to maybe cook it for about 25 minutes or so. But once you have your bacon, you're gonna pat it onto the sheet to get some of that grease off. And I just kind of do the old-fashioned tearing it apart with my fingers, even though that was not a good idea because I did not let it cool long enough. So it definitely hurt my fingers a little bit, but got all the bacon into the soup and gave it a nice stir and let it sit for about 30 minutes. Look at that, the soup is all done. So after sitting for 30 minutes and all the ingredients are all cooked together, it's time to get it all served up to my family and see how they like it. See if you like it.
I'm already done.
You didn't even eat the soup. How is it?
Pretty good.
Yeah?
I'm all done. Look, nothing left on my plate. I just finished my food.
Would you like to try some corn chowder?
No, thank you.
You picky eater. All right, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed these recipes. If you end up trying them, please comment below. I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on them. And make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new content that I put out. I'm really excited about the next couple of videos that I'm putting together. So make sure that you will stick around for those. And thank you again for watching. And I hope you have a great day and see you at the next one.